All right, today we're going to talk about domain and range. So let's just jump into it. State the domain and range of a function, of the function. All right, first thing I want to do is remind you guys that domain is X and range is going to be Y. So all we have to do is get our coordinate pairs set up. See. Remember, it's always X, comma, Y, X, comma, Y, X, comma, Y, X, comma, Y. It's always X first. Think about it alphabetically too. X, Y, Z, right? X comes before Y. So there's a little helpful hint for you. All right, so let's look for our domain first. For our domain is going to be all of our X values. So we have 0, 2, 4, and 6. Our range is just going to be all of our Y values. So we have 3, 9, 15, and 21. And that's it. The only thing you have to really remember here is that domain is X and range is Y. All right, same thing. I'll set this up. Remember, domain is X, comma, and then range is Y. We know our range is Y, domain is X. So let's just look for them. X is -1, -2, -3, -4. Now, I will say in math, now, obviously, like if you wrote it out like this, I would totally count it. Right? I wouldn't take any points off. But in math, we do like to be just a little bit organized. So we actually write them in order from smallest to greatest. But again, if you wrote it the other way on an assignment, I certainly wouldn't take any points off. But just because, this is math class, I will show you how to write it out correctly. So our range is our Y values. Look where our Y is, the second number in the parentheses, -2, -3, -4, -5. And if we put those in order from least to greatest, right, we get -5, -4, -3, -2. All right, tables are probably my favorite. All right, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if I can use this highlighter. And we'll do yellow for domain because we're really focused on this X here. That's our domain, which would be our X. And we'll do green for our Y. Like, you don't even really have to do a lot of thinking here. It's just more matching them up. All right. Oh, I should have done blue. Anyway, so our domain would be our 11, our 7, our 3, and our -1. Again, in math, we tend to write these in order from least to greatest. And our range is going to be -1, -3, -5, -7. So -7, -5, -3, -1. But as long as you get them all together, again, I will not knock you any points. All right, let's lose some of these colors and like really try and like memorize this, right? So I know that my domain is going to be my X, right? So this is my domain. And again, this never goes away in math. This is something that is constantly brought up. So I just have to look at my table. I'm like, bam, X values, got them, 12, 14, 16, 18. Let me go ahead and put these in order from smallest to greatest, which they already are. And I'm done. All right, when I go to range, I'm just looking at my Y value. All right, they're already like all together for you in the table. Just put them in order from smallest to greatest. All right, here's where we get into something a little bit trickier. And I will use a highlighter for this one. So for domain, we know that these are going to be our x values. So I want to go from my point and draw a line down to my x value, which in this case is -5. This one is, you can't really see it, but it's -4. This one's already on our x-axis, so it's just 1. This is on our y-axis, so we know it's going to be 0. Comes down to 3. This one comes to 5. So our domain, do it right with that. Our domain, we're just going to read it from left to right. So we know we have a -5, a -4, we have a 0, we have a 1, a 3, and a 5. Sorry for squeezing that in there. 3 and a 5. All right, now let's talk about range. Again, this is probably the trickiest out of them all, the graphs, because you really have to look into the graph. So from this point, I'm going to draw a line to my y-axis. Same thing. Notice that I draw a line to 4 twice. We do not have to label that, or we don't have to define that like in our set twice. And I'll show you when we get there. This point, again, it's on the x-axis, so it just comes to 0. This point comes to -1, -3, and all you have to do is follow the lines. And this one is on the y-axis, so it is just -5. All right, so if I go ahead and write out my range, remember I'm going to go from smallest to least. Well, I know that I circled -5, -3. Don't know what happened there. I circled a -1 and a 0, so -1, 0. And then up here I circle a 4. But notice just because I have 2 lines drawn to it doesn't mean I have to write it twice. All right. Once it's in the range or in the domain, it's there forever. All right. So we do not have to write it repetitively. All right. Same thing here. If I do my domain first. Oh, this one's on my y, so I know it's 5. Whoa. Sorry about that. Let's start here. I'm going to come up to my x-axis, which is -6. Come up to my x-axis, which is 0. Down to my x, which is 0. Down to my x, which is 1. Down to my x, which is 6. All right, so for domain, you're just going to your x-axis. Well, let's check off all of our points. We have -6. We have 0. Again, just because 2 points went to it, you do not have to write it twice. You will not see that written like that on any test or exit ticket. Of course, if there's ever like a hand-in assignment and you did that, I would not knock points for you. All right, and then when we do our y-axis or our range, oops. We know that we're going to start at our point, come to our y-axis. We have a -5. This one's on our y, so it's already -2. This one is a 1, a 2, and this one's on our y, so it's 5. And you're just going to go from least to greatest. So -5. Remember, check them off as we go. -2. We have a 1, a 2, and a 5. Just to make sure we got that one in there for the domain. All right. Last thing that we're going to learn about today is what is the value of y in the function below when x equals -2. So there are a couple of different ways you can do this. I know you guys are really comfortable with Desmos, so I will show you that here in a second. But this is pretty much the same thing as when we, I just lost the word. It'll come to me. When we substituted, right? We're just going to, everywhere we see an x, we're going to put this -2 in. So we'll have y equals -3. I'm going to write these parentheses plus 11. Well, x equals -2, so we put a -2 in for x. So y is going to equal 6 plus 11, right? Because -3 times -2 is 6, and 6 plus 11 is just 17. So what is the value of y in the function below? Y is 17. If it said, What's the range when the domain is -2? Same concept, right? When you think of X, you think of domain. When you think of Y, you think of range. All right, here we go. What is the range in the function below when the domain is 1/4? When the domain is 1/4. Well, this is telling me that X equals 1/4. That's what this domain is telling me. So that means everywhere there's an X, I put in a 1/4. So I have 8 for my parentheses, and that's where I'm going to put my 1/4. All right, well, 8 divided by 4, or 8 times 1/4, is going to be 2. And bring down what we didn't use. And what we'll get is Y equals 4. And that's going to be our answer, because 2 plus 2 equals 4. So that's what our range would be. When our domain, or X, is 1/4, our range, Y, is just going to be 4. Now you're going to get questions that have a bunch of different domain values for you. Like here we have -2, 1, and 12. So here's where Desmos is probably helpful. Kind of speed up the process a little bit. So if you want, you can just write in the whole function. You can write in Y equals -6x minus 1. Hit enter, hit X equals, and just plug in your X's, right? I know I'm looking for X equals -2. So when I plug in a negative, make sure you can see this. When I plug in a -2, right here, we'll see that my Y equals 11. And that's the same thing as what I did earlier, where I showed you about plugging in that X value for where you see an X in the function. All right, what about when X is 1? You'll see that we get Y equals -7. What about when X is 12? What about when X is 12, right? Y is going to equal -73. So you can see where Desmos really helps you, because some of these answers can get rather large. All right, I'm going to skip this one. Same thing, you just plug this guy in Desmos. Plug in your values for X, get your Ys. All right, so let's do this. Doesn't give you a chart, right? So it's telling us our domain. All right, well, we want to know what our range is. What is our range? Well, I'm going to line them up just like the domain. So I'm going to do this -2/2 first, then I'm going to do a 1/2 second, and I'm going to do 1/4 third. All right, and I'm going to line them up in my range brackets the same way. So I'm just going to hop over here to Desmos. Remember, after every problem, we clear out Desmos. Type in Y equals 10x plus 9. Hit enter, X equals. And let's type in -2 divided by 5. And you'll see that we get 5 for our range. So I'm just going to put 5 in for the range. All right, what about when X equals 1/2? 1 divided by 2. And you'll see that we get a 14 for our range, or our Y value. All right, and last but not least, when we check out X equals 4, we get 49. All right, so this is just like substituting for these problems. This would be your answer. All right, same thing for this problem. Stick this guy in Desmos, test out each answer. Oh, I'm sorry, actually, this one is a little bit different. Let me go over this one with you, because they'll throw you oddball questions like this. Extra info that you have to pay attention to. All right, so I want to highlight something here. What is the greatest value? All right, and that's going to be in the range. In the range of the function below when the domain is -5, 0, and 3. All right, well, in Desmos, you want to type out your formula, your equation or function. Hit that X equals, and let's test all of our values. What are our values? -5, 0, and 3. So we're going to have my pen back for my range. We're going to have -5 for x. And you'll see I get a -16. All right, let's go ahead and plug in 0 for x. And we get a -6. And let's go ahead and plug in a 3 for x. And you'll see I get a 0. All right, go back to the question. It says, what's the greatest value in the range? Which one of these numbers is the biggest, is what it's asking us. Notice A is out because it's not even in our range. Well, between -16, -6, and 0, which one is the biggest? Do not make a silly number line mistake. We know 0's here, -6 is here, -16. The bigger numbers are further to the right on the number line, so our answer is B. Or just to kind of show you, 0 is greater than, yeah, that works. -16 is less than -6, which is less than 0. Okay, if you guys have any questions, reach out. Other than that, have a wonderful rest of your day.